So, I don't know about you guys, but one of the things I really value about my job and what I get to do, what I've been able to do for so long is help people. And I've taken a lot of pride in being able to do that and do that well. With that comes a tremendous amount of responsibility for me. I mean, I feel that, and I've had a lot of experience with a lot of coaches in this business over the years, and tons of clients. Literally coached thousands of people. I've literally coached thousands of coaches. Actually, I've had those kinds of opportunities, and I've never taken any of them lightly. And I understand, when somebody comes to us as coaches, they've effectively gotten to a place where they've admitted that they need some help, which I think is very important. That they've done that. Like, hey, okay, great, you need some help, and they're willing to put their trust and their finance in somebody else in order to help them achieve some type of goal. A lot of times that isn't really well developed, and part of being a good coach is uncovering that and making sure it is well developed, so we're all on the same page. But there are a lot of people out there that are searching for answers, right? And I think more than ever, and it's great to see, particularly with kind of where we're at, and we talk about it ad nauseum on the show, just kind of where the health of our nation is, and what people are doing or not doing in order to take care of themselves and take personal responsibility. But more than ever, they are looking for personalized solutions now. They the group training side of this industry has definitely taken a hit in the last couple of years, where we had some stuff going on, and it seems to have that's a tough thing to recover from, because it takes a while to build the critical mass for that. And when you establish business models and things that require X amount of people to occupy X amount of space on the floor, period, it's a turnstile where we have 35 bikes, we have to have a minimum of 30 people per class in order to maintain, for 5 classes a day in order to maintain this model. When all that shit gets cut up, it's really tough to kind of put it back together. So from a business perspective, it's tough. And I think it forces people to do things or maybe modify things that might not be great, which puts the consumer in a bad position. But I like to give the consumer some credit when they're out there and they're a little bit more savvy looking for a coach. And I think what we could do to help those people, and maybe even help some coaches out there that are maybe were that group coach that are now need to move into more personalized coaching, or thinking about it, or have, and are maybe struggling or on the precipice of really kind of pushing their business forward, is understanding what, or maybe how to approach the coaching, specifically from the consumer's perspective. Like, what are the questions you should be asking your coach before you get started on a program with them, or get into one of their programs, whatever it is? Because as much as the coach should be interviewing you as a client to find out what your needs, your goals, your, all that cliched stuff, is you have an opportunity, and you should be interviewing your coach. And so there's a few things that I think you should be asking. We'll talk about those things. And I'm going to preface it with this. Whoever you're talking to, if they're a professional, they should welcome this.
Absolutely.
And I always thank people. I am really glad that you're asking me these questions. I'll let them know you're asking the right questions. You are informed. You have done your homework. I appreciate that. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's so from a coach's perspective, and I want clients to hear this too, or potential clients to hear this too. You're a coach. When you do that, what you're doing is you're telling the coach that you're serious about this decision you're making. And that puts confidence in the coach that they're making the right decision in terms of bringing you on as a client, because this is a two-way street.
Yep.
Yes.
I don't have to take you on as a client.
I only have a certain amount of hours in a day. And if you're going to cancel and move all this stuff and I have just this hour floating, I mean, right, we need to maximize our time.
That is one point, as in a very good point. Like I am trading time for dollars as a coach, and so I need to make sure that when I put somebody there, I know that I'm not going to have to deal with them not being there regularly or being inconsistent.
Exactly.
So that is absolutely one thing. The other part about that, which I want clients to hear this, is that not every client is the right client for me. Like, I recognize that right off the bat as a coach. Like, when I first started, I was desperate. I'm going to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk about the desperation.
For sure.
But I don't have to train you, right? And by the way, there's plenty of pie out there for us all to be eating, and I'll find another client. Like, I don't need you.
Mm-hmm.
I want I want you as a client. That's where I want this relationship to be. I want you to want me as a coach. I want you to want me to be your coach. I want you to want to wash dishes.
Vince Vaughn.
Nice.
The breakup line, right? I want you to want to wash dishes. So I don't have to take you on. And if you're going to be a problem, that is, you're going to be a drain on me mentally. You're going to be a drain on me emotionally. You're coming in with a bad attitude. You're coming in uncommitted. You're coming in wishy-washy. You're not the right client for me, right? I think that's an important point for both ends of the spectrum to understand. And I don't have to do that. And a coach, a professional, should know that and be able to read that right away and go, I don't think I'm the right coach for you, and not be afraid to say that. So,
a lot of people will take all the clients and then try to boost them through motivation on your end. And you can't want it for them. They need to want it, right?
Yeah, that is a horrible platform for success.
Yeah.
That is not where we
like you're talking about the desperation, that's where you start, right?
You're like, I got to get clients. So you take on everybody. And I think that's part of the process, right? It's part
of learning.
Absolutely.
It's part of suffering and getting better at things and learning why I made a mistake there so that you can read it the next time and maybe make a better decision. This is part of the process.
For sure.
And clients have gone through that process. They've met with the coach that, told them said all the right things at the right time, maybe early on in their journey. They went ahead, invested their time and their efforts and their money into that, and it wound up not being a great investment for many different reasons. Maybe this person had sound training philosophies and methodologies and, had a great gym and was clean and all that stuff. But the guy's just an asshole, right? And it doesn't know how to treat people, or doesn't show up on time, or he cancels constantly, or he's, I find out he's basically giving every single person the same workout. These are all things that we'll talk about in terms of what questions to ask your potential coach here in a second. But those are things that people should be aware of going in. So I just mentioned a couple of them. So we're going to go down a list of things that you should ask your coach before investing in or getting in bed with, for lack of a better term, with them with regard to your fitness and health journey. And I'm going to start with this one, and I'll kick it over to you guys. I think one of the first things, and this might not come up until a little bit later in the conversation, because let's play through this actually. Typically, the way this goes in terms of picking a coach, it's evolved, right? It's evolved. When I started coaching, there were no interwebs to do this on, right? Like you went to your local gym, right? And there was a wall or a board, right? It was like a media board, right? And there was pictures and there was bios, right, for each trainer. And some trainers had their shirts off.
Oh
right?
my!
Some were in their.
I couldn't imagine.
Oh yeah, some were like it was like it was their best day on stage as a bodybuilder.
Oh, I get it.
Other ones it's just a headshot. Other ones it's like mom with her kids. Like you could see stuff like that.
Look like that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Pandering.
But there were bios there, and there was like, hey, here's all your certifications, and here's a little bio. But hey, we have those hanging in our window here because they're still effective. We also have them on their website.
We have our shirts on though.
Yeah, we all have our shirts on. We're all wearing uniforms, and
I was really upset
uniforms
about
being
that,
like a t-shirt. But the point of that is that still works. But now people are seeing all kinds of stuff. You've got you've got Instagram, you've got YouTube, you've got
have access to a lot of people.
All of these different things that exist now. But yeah, so people are picking trainers based on things that they're seeing, and then they're trying to back up that, what they're seeing or validate what they're seeing on other sides. So like, okay, I saw this really great ad. Then I went to their Instagram and I saw, oh, that kind of looks like me. I could maybe fit into this. I'm not really sure. I watch a few videos. Then I go to Yelp. I can go to Yelp now to see like what kind of reviews is this trainer had. And then I go back to the website now and I kind of look now, is all this stuff kind of adding up, and I go through and I read the full bio. I see what all the pricing and what the programs are. And then ultimately as a consumer, like, let's get down to business. Like, how much is this going to cost me? Right. And as a coach, obviously that's part of the process. And so for the next part of that is usually there's contact, right? And that comes through an email or a phone call. And I always encourage everybody to get on the phone. Like, you should be able to have a conversation with somebody, not a fucking DM, not an email. I'm really passionate about this because you're not going to be showing up to a program where you're DMing, right? If you're going into a gym and you're meeting with your coach, you should have some interaction.
You should have already had a conversation.
There should be some kind of a connection there. So I encourage the phone call on both ends. In which case, there should be, obviously that's a longer format. It gives a little bit more free flow in the conversation. I think there's more honesty and more integrity.
You get to hear
there.
tone in the voice. There's just a lot more going on. You can read text different ways depending on what mood and behavior you're in. If a client texts me and I start reading weird, I call them immediately. And
right. Well, look, if I'm a client and I'm about to drop a bunch of money on a coach and we set up a time to call or whatever, or he calls me, and the next thing you know, what he or she is doing in the background is dealing with the kids, dealing with the dog in the park, driving down the road, distracted. Guess what? That's going to translate over
into your
training program. If they're not paying attention to you now and they're not even a client, and they're distracted, I'm not going to say not paying attention. I'm just going to say if they're distracted now, they're going to be distracted later.
The other thing is too, that's distracting on the other end.
1,000%.
On the receiving end as well. So.
Yeah, it's like texting during a session when you're in front of somebody as a coach. Like, fucking do that.
Yeah.
Right? Like you need to be all in. And so having a phone conversation is very important, I think. And again, that's typically how I think it should go. But ultimately we get down, like where the questions generally start are like, okay, from the coach to the potential client, tell me about your fitness goals. Those are very easy questions to ask. And they should be asking you those questions. But we're going to get in, I think, into the less obvious questions that a potential client should be asking their coach. So some of these questions are not necessarily in order. They could be in whatever order makes the most sense for you. Maybe you ask some of them. Maybe you ask all of them. Maybe you ask none of them.
The ones that are pertinent to you.
Right. At the time, but we're just going to kind of preload you with some stuff to maybe look out for. And again, in no particular order, I would start with, tell me about your training philosophy or your philosophy on health and fitness. Because oftentimes that'll be articulated. If you did see it in the bio, you'll see something, but it is kind of left to your interpretation. I want to hear it out of the person's mouth. You want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I think philosophy is really important because each person is their own individual and they come with their own exercise history, their own health history, the experiences, and all of that. So, as a coach, you have to take that in and kind of assess what's that individual's mind frame and what are their abilities. So as a consumer, when you ask your coach, hey, so what's your training philosophy? I think the coach should be able to articulate that my philosophy is X, Y, and Z. So for me, my fitness and training philosophy is everybody's an individual. I think everybody should and can exercise. It's just that everybody's going to move a little bit differently, and people are going to have their own health issues and conditions. And so I need to be able to program appropriately for that individual where they are currently in time and space, and be able to adapt their program as they are progressing. And along those lines, there's going to be progression and there's going to be regression. So being able to take that programming and adjust it to whatever's happening in that person's life at that time. So, as you've said, Jeff, and we've all said at one point or another, life isn't linear. So we're going to have our ups and our downs and our plateaus. And so I want to make sure that I'm going to have a coach that's going to be able to address that. And should I have an injury somewhere along the line, can that coach adapt and help me work through it, if not help me get better? I'm not asking them to, rehab me, but can they also work with another health and fitness professional to help me better understand what's happening to my body, but then also maybe pick up where another healthcare professional has
left off.
Yeah. Exactly.
Or where my hands
augment.
are tied, right?
Yep, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it's important, understanding that your hands could be tied, Jeff.
Understanding your scope of practice.
I have my line. Yeah,
I can crack your back, but I'm not a not a chiropractor.
Right. Stay in your lane. Like, this is my lane. I understand what that is. This is how I approach it. And when I find that when we get to a challenge or we get to things that we may need to bring another professional in, I not only know those people, I work with them closely, I communicate with them, and I'm going to help be an advocate for you when you walk in there. That's all part of the philosophy, I think. Yeah, it adds value. And that's the bigger piece, Jeff, I think is is when you're asking this question, and it can be answered a lot of different ways, but when you're asking this question, what you should be looking for is, does this person's values about health and fitness align with my values?
Mhm.
Because it's very easy for them to align with your goals or say they will. You want to put on muscle and lose fat.
Everyone
I've never heard a
does.
fucking client never say that, like, or not say that.
Yeah.
Like they say that.
Yeah.
That's what they're going to say,
Yeah.
right? So that's there's almost a pre-programmed response for that every time. And by the way, it's not hard to get somebody to do that with a little bit of application.
Absolutely.
You literally don't have to have any education in order to be able to do that. Very minimal education at that. I want to know where our values align, because when our values are aligned, and the goals are aligned, we're in a much better position to succeed. So what you're really looking like here is, does this sound like the right coach for me from a value perspective? And you're going to get that through their philosophy. I'm the same way, CC. I mean, I keep it really basic. Like, I think most people need to move more. I think they need to move better.
Yes.
And everybody has different goals. They're all different people. There is no one size fits all to any of this. And but I do believe that everybody needs to be held accountable, and they need to confront and then prioritize whatever those things are, whatever they are. And that's my job. That's my philosophy. As long as we're doing those things on a regular basis, the rate of success exponentially increases. And that's what I want people to understand when they come in. Now, there's a lot that goes into putting that all together. And there's other questions you could ask to maybe understand that more. And the one I would ask then is like, okay, well, how do we do this? More specifically, talk to me about your methodology of training, and maybe how you're going to help me achieve my goal of XYZ. Again, that was the easy question from the beginning. So methodology being more, what is the approach to the training? What is the approach to the relationship? What is the approach to both the short and the long term? So if I'm a client, what answers might I or should I be looking for?
Well, I think one of them would be, the coach talking about the program, maybe highlighting these are your goals, and give you a roadmap, giving a roadmap as far as like, this is going to take time,
Timeline,
patience, consistency, all of those things, and informing that person that, this is the roadmap, but again, there's going to be some ebb and flow. So, and what that might look like.
Your hip's been fucked up for 10 years. It's not going to get fixed in 6. Let's be real. It might get better.
Yeah, you're being realistic.
Come on.
That's going back to timelines. It's not necessarily, one thing you should be cautious about is somebody telling you you're going to achieve this by this time. No coach should be telling anybody that. If your coach,
and
when
the
ask them
corporate gyms used to
all the time.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of them, like the transformation centers I see out there. That's what they call them now. Transformation gyms, transformation centers. By 30 days, you're going to lose this amount of weight. And if you don't, we'll give you your money back. I'd be really fucking cautious. In fact, I wouldn't be cautious. I'd run far and fast.
Because I could get you to lose weight instantly. I mean, dude, we could.
At what cost?
Exactly.
Yep, exactly.
It's not going to be a good effect on the body. We can do it. Right?
It goes back to methodology.
Exactly.
Right? So what's the approach? And you mentioned like, hey, what's the roadmap look like? I want to know what the solutions-based system, program, format is that you're going to use or utilize. I want to be prepared for this as I get into this new program with you or this new journey.
So for me, like yesterday, I was with a new client. Dude does not have a patella. Got into a motorcycle accident. Patella is gone.
I heard about this. I'm sorry I missed it. Yeah,
dude, it was gone. So I was just going through some movement I wanted to see because he has knee pain. Squatting it makes sense, right? Just going through, giving him some certain cues, getting him into knee pain, right? Just squat.
Finding out what it is.
He's like, oh, dude, my knee hurts here. Why don't you do A, B, and C? Here, let's do this. Let me manage you a little bit. Dude, no pain. So the whole time I'm going through and I'm showing him that his knee can have no pain, manually resisted, internally, all the stuff. No pain, nothing. Guy's fine. And he finds value in that, oh my God, my knee doesn't hurt when I squat when it constantly does. And he was shopping for gyms. He was going to a couple of gyms. I heard
he'd been to about 3 before us, yeah.
And he was like, dude, what they did in an hour and a half, you did in 40 minutes. And that's just to say that we do this all the time is what I've been doing for 12 years.
Right.
It's been a long time. But saying that is, if you cannot as a coach look at somebody's individuality and be able to manipulate or look at what's going on, where the tension is going,
in the body.
Is the heel coming off the ground? Are they butt winking? Can they not maintain their core? Are they losing their shoulder blades? Like, if you can't see that as a coach, you're not a coach.
Yeah.
And that's, I hate to say that and bash on people, but like you need to be hard on your clients. If they're butt winking and they're not maintaining proper posture, put them on a box and lift them up until where they have proper posture, and then work on their lumbopelvic flexibility.
Yeah, I think you're touching on some good points here, and that is the honesty, right, and the integrity that you're trying to maintain.
Yeah.
Not every coach approaches it that way, and I think that can be brought out in when you're explaining and or showing what your methodology might be like. We're going to get to, I think, what would be the third best question here, or the next question, which would be the third question in a second. But the point is like you are telling somebody what the expectation should be, and that is you don't have to be in pain all the time.
Yeah, and
this is the way we're going to go about doing it. Let me show you a couple of things, or let me tell you a couple of things. Let me ask you a few more questions, or walk you through a few more things, so that you can see what this may look like over the long term. Also, not trying to line it all out, because whatever I give to you this week, we're going to have to be reassessing every time you come in. It's going to look a little bit different the following week. It isn't linear, to your point.
Every rep's an assessment.
Right. And every person needs to be handled differently. So when you're asking about, again, methodology, they should be able to walk you through what should a typical session look like? What would a typical program look like based on what I know about you right now?
Exactly.
Because if this is a phone conversation, I'm limited.
Yes.
Right? I'm not as informed as I need to be in order to give you details.
I haven't done an assessment, right?
But I can tell you in general, because I've had experience doing this, these are some of the things you might expect, but I won't know more until the next question that you ask gets fulfilled. And that is, tell me about how we're going to assess where I am now, so that we know where to start. So what does the assessment process look like? This is a big one for us. Obviously, we're nerds, and we get bashed a lot of people we're talking about arm curls. I saw some dickhead was like, this is a dude would criticize Ronnie Coleman for how he did arm curls.
No, I would criticize his squat, but it
I
was
laughed
heavy,
at that.
though.
I laugh at this stuff. Like I never respond to it. I was laughing.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, you do, you boo. Yeah. But
that was the response.
Not quite where we go with this. We just want people to be healthy, right? And get the most out of what they're doing. And by the way, most people aren't Ronnie Coleman, so shut your face.
Yeah, 8-time Olympian.
Long story short, talk about the assessment process and how we're going to find out where I am right now. So going back to what you were saying, Cece, about being in the current time and space. Like, what is that for me? I'm going to ask you about your history, but that isn't where you're at now. You can tell me how great a shape you are or were when you were in college.
Cool, dude.
Yeah, that's great.
Awesome.
But this is where you are now.
You're 135 now.
Right.
And this
Yeah, but then also as far as your history, what injuries have you had in the past? Because those might rear their ugly head now, especially if you've been inactive, or you're coming to us or you're going to that coach because you're having pain.
Right.
So yeah, you need to understand that person's history skeletally as well as medical.
Yeah, so we talk about your health and fitness history, and I'll just in a brief assessment, we can maybe again, this is that phone call or that you're having with that person before you're actually, then you haven't even committed. These are questions you should be asking before you even show up. So you don't.
This is a screening.
Yeah, you should be screening your coach the same as your coach is screening you and trying to set the appointment with you. You don't want to be committing to an appointment that's going to waste your time, right? If you're curious and you don't care, then okay, go. But my point is I want to be efficient with my time and not waste it. And you don't know till you don't know, so ask. So you don't know till you know, so ask. To your point, Cece, it's okay, let's talk a little bit about your exercise and your medical history. These questions should get more detailed as you're answering those for your coach. So if you respond with, I actually had a knee injury, I went to physical therapy for it, there should be a good amount of time talking about, well, what was that knee injury, right? What was the mechanism of injury? What was the diagnosis? Was there any medical intervention? Tell me about that.
How long ago was it?
Your coach should be really curious about that. As curious as they are about your goals of, I want to tone up and lose weight, right? And the reason you want to get there, they should be very curious about those things. Tell me a little bit about your health history now. When was the last time you had a checkup with your physician? How did that go?
Some blood work.
Right. All of those kind of things. A qualified coach should be asking you a good deal of these questions. Obviously, the more experience they have, it will show up in this conversation.
For sure.
The more inexperienced they are, the more bullshit will show up in this type of a conversation.
And this is kind of the conversation we're trying to steer towards, is get people out of the 80% that suck into the 20% that know what they're doing, right?
Yep. Just 20% of the people doing 80% of the work out there, right? And they're doing it in a solid way.
Lord's
So
work.
yeah. So talk to me about your assessment process. This can look, depending on your goals, depending on who you're going to, whatever, can look very different. So there is no perfect assessment. Believe me, I've tried to find it, and it doesn't exist. We have a method here, or some methodology that we use here in terms of how we approach things based on your skill level as a coach, your knowledge level as a coach, and also with the understanding that if you run into something that you're unsure about, there's another coach standing right next to you that you could pull in to that assessment to help with the process. And we have a network of highly skilled practitioners outside here. If we came across something that was maybe very acute or very unusual, hey, not sure what this is, but let's get it checked out. That's not going to stop us from starting your program right now, but we'd love to involve this in there. So again, the point of that is they should be able to articulate this very well to you. What is it going to look like? And if it starts with just a questionnaire and starts and ends with a questionnaire, it's not good enough.
Nope.
Like there should be some time spent on the floor or in person, hands-on, watching you do some movements, going through, again, revisiting some of the questions that might have got answered on the phone in a higher level of detail, some quote-unquote testing, challenging you out on the floor.
If I don't see you move, how am I going to make a
1,000%?
So like, I have them forward lunge, their knee hurts a little bit. I do a reverse lunge where they get more 90 degrees, less knee travel. Hey, no knee pain. Okay, things like that where you
need to get a baseline.
You're getting information, and I'm not saying that that's an assessment I use. It's just an example of
right. Yeah, I get you. No, you're going on the right path here, Jeff, in that you're trying to get people to think maybe a little bit differently about, oh yeah, how can this person tell me what all the exercises, how many days a week I should be coming in here, and how I should be organizing my workout program. If they're already telling me you need to be resistance training 4 days a week and doing 3 days a week of cardio, and we haven't even been in person together yet, no.
Yeah.
That's a red flag, right?
Red flag.
No, you don't. You don't have enough information on me right now. Maybe I already think that in my head. I'm thinking, well, I need to be working out 4 days a week, and I need to be doing 3 days of cardio, or lifting 4 days and 3 days of cardio. If the coach on the other end is going, hey, let's pump the brakes right here. I'm not really sure if that's a good recommendation for you or not. You should be taking that as a positive. That person is going, I'm not sure if that's the right thing for you or not. And admitting that or putting that out there in front.
Because that person's a salesperson,
that's a green flag. That is a good check.
Right? When I'm trying to make a sale. And at the same time, when you're telling somebody, wait, hold on, we might do less. That's something to look at.
It's too soon to tell, right? We should be going through this assessment process first. So here's something to understand about the assessment process. This doesn't necessarily, this process, depending on what they're taking you through, who they are, why you're going to see them, what your goals are, could be anything from free to a premium rate, right? And people handle that differently. At Red Dot, if you come in for an assessment, like, and you've never seen us before, and we've qualified you over the phone, this isn't like, I want a free training session, and sign up online. No, you will not get one of those from us. It's free. It's complimentary, if you will. But we need to talk to you first. We need to qualify who it is that's coming in. Again, because you might not be the right client for us, and we'll go ahead and tell you that straight up on the phone. But I want my free session, but you're not the right client for us, so you're not getting it. That we're bold enough and smart enough to do that. And
we're not wasting our time.
The consumer needs to understand it. And more importantly, we're not wasting your time as a client.
Exactly.
Right? So that may or may not. So again, it could be from free to charged. Sometimes what to expect is that's one thing to expect as a client. What some places will do is like, hey, I do charge $100 a session. I will charge you for this session. However, if you purchase a package, or if you get into a program, I'll apply that to the package in some form or fashion. This is standard practice in the industry. So don't get your panties in a wad if you've qualified with this person, or this person's qualified, and you say, okay, let's set up an assessment. I'm going to need a credit card from you in order to book your appointment. Because if they've spent all this time as a professional, right, with you on the phone, they've taken time out of their day, they've booked an hour where they could have had somebody else, a paying customer in there, right? Then you decide to no-show, or you decide there was something else that was more important, right? Like work,
A key.
which is an excuse. Like, well, my boss held me up. Well, then this isn't a priority for you. If you had to go to the doctor, would your boss have held you up? Had to go see your attorney. Would your boss have held you up? Had to go see your.
If you had to go pick up your kid.
If you go pick up your kid, would your boss? You've already made this secondary, so I already know where we stand. At the same time, I made it a priority for me and for you. Therefore, you are paying for it, right? And so they may charge you for that assessment process, and use it as insurance in case you're disrespectful and or things outside of your control and come up, which don't allow you to come to the appointment. But guess what? That's not in the control of the coach either, who did all these things already. And so it is what it is. It is what it is. So again, what's the assessment going to be like? What does that process look like? And there's that little that little extra on what to expect from how much that might cost. So those are things that should be laid out there, right from the get-go. What's another one that comes up for you, just in terms of, what's a question somebody should be asking kind of out of the gate to assess or screen their coach, potential coach?
How do you handle nutrition? Or what were you going to say?
No, go. I was going to do that. Or how do you train yourself?
Okay, that's two different questions. Two different questions. So let's handle the nutrition. Let's handle the nutrition one first.
Yeah. So as far as a prospective client and you're asking your coach about nutrition, I think that, listen to their philosophy, ask them their philosophy on nutrition, because, it needs to be sustainable for you as the client. Not everybody's going to want to eat chicken and broccoli and rice. And religion and culture, for some individuals, it's a very big thing. And so that coach needs to be able to adapt whatever kind of nutrition coaching or advice that they are giving their client. But then also ask whether or not nutrition coaching is part of the fitness training as well. Because I can tell you, or we all can sit here and say that nutrition is a completely different business. It is a different animal, and there's a lot of work that goes in when working with the client. So see if your coach is going to take you on dually as a fitness and nutrition client, or maybe that coach isn't going to do the nutrition. They can help guide you, but they will suggest that you see somebody else for nutrition, or maybe they have a recommendation.
So when I was by myself, I did the nutrition part of it. I was a little extra, nothing crazy. Over time, I realized that it started getting super neurotic with a lot of people, and that's where I pumped the brakes and wanted to create a separate job for that, because it was just I'm dealing with people's, I feel this way about eating. It was more of a therapist than just being like, hey, here's your macros and meals, right? You really start having to manage people and their emotions. So it's where I really started cutting that as part of the personal training package and being like, if you want to do nutrition, as we do, it's up front. It's going to be an investment, because I need to know that I'm doing all this work and that we're going to go down the road together. And if you don't come with me, that money's mine. Right. You get what I'm saying? It's just putting an investment up front to
making commitment to the program. Exactly. Yeah. So I think this is important to kind of articulate a little bit, because you just got to handle it same but different. Cece, what you're saying is understand where they're coming from a nutrition perspective. Like, is this somebody that's going to try and sell you a bunch of supplements up front, right? And then, tell you, I'm going to give you a meal plan. I'll be honest, meal plans for some people work. For the person that wants to be like on stage for his bodybuilder, there's enough driving force there. For sure. Right?
If they're not emotionally attached to food, like
then and they know, like, I eat this way because I have to be on stage in a bikini or, a pair of board shorts or whatever to get this result. That usually works pretty fine. And that's how that kind of worked. That's where those things got started. Bodybuilders giving people, this is what worked for me. This is how I look the way I looked on stage. So eat like this, adjust it accordingly to your weight, height, all that stuff. And you'll lose body fat and you'll get lean. We all know that's not sustainable, not even for the bodybuilder, not even for the professional bodybuilder, right? They don't eat like that all the time. Meal plan templates, just long-term are not effective. In my experience.
Unless you can create a meal plan yourself with the foods that you like, with the knowledge taking in
that you have.
And you can create these meals where you're like, man, it's not boiled chicken, and you
Right.
shouldn't be boiling your chicken. Just come on, but
You don't have to
most
do
do.
that,
But
yeah.
I'm just saying, like, it doesn't have to be this microwave chicken. You can have good, tasty meals, but it does take some time to learn how to cook that way.
So that to your point, Jeff, it's like just because you're training with me as a coach doesn't mean you're also on some type of nutrition program through me.
Yep.
You should articulate. If that's what you're looking for, you need to figure that out right from the get-go.
For sure.
And also to your point, for us, we've made nutrition coaching and let's say fitness coaching two different things, right? You are going to get, like, if you decided I don't want nutrition coaching for whatever the reasons are, and there could be lots of those, right? I just want fitness coaching, but I want, on my health and wellness program, but I do want some recommendations and I do want some guidance. 1,000% we're
All
going to
day.
give that to
Yeah.
you. But if you want to start dipping in and getting deeper into, well, you want like
How do I cut?
macro
Yeah,
prescription, right?
exactly.
And let's take a look at those the micronutrients. You want regular follow-ups and check-ins and things like that. That is a
outside the
tremendous
scope.
amount of time. And anybody that's not taking the time to really look into that, or is just like, hey, send me a check-in once a week and I'll send you, new macros. That's not coaching.
Mm-mm.
That isn't coaching. And for anybody that's been involved in this, again, that's not trying to step on stage or whatever else, they should know that by now. Like what they end up needing and what you were talking about before is there's a lot that goes into nutrition on the 24/7 basis that nutrition is involved in versus 2 hour or an hour, a couple of days a week with your coach on the fitness floor for that matter. So we handle it differently. And if that's what your expectation is, that you're going to get nutrition coach, you need to identify that right up front. Because at Red Dot Fitness, we don't handle it that way. Like, we're going to give you a lot of information and a lot of help, but it's not going to get specific to you. If you want a personalized program, then we're going to spend a lot of time developing that program for you or with you and helping you get through that program. But the philosophy is going to be really important on this. Like, talk to me about how you handle nutrition, because you could find out some things like, hey, well, I think the best thing for everybody is keto. That's the best way to fat loss and whatever else. And
that's a fixed mindset.
Yeah.
It's just trash.
Again, yes, if there's any absolutes like that, I would run far and fast.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
But if that's what you're looking for, if like I want a coach, the coach is keto.
I want carnivore. Yeah,
then
whatever.
go look for the keto coach. Yeah. So another one. You brought up one, so moving on to the next question is tell me about how you handle your own health and fitness program. I think that's a legit question.
I mean,
it's a dangerous one because
it is.
If you get a narcissist that just wants to talk about themselves all the
Themselves for an
time.
hour, you're going to be held up, right? But I think it is important to see, how does your trainer train? How do they eat? Do they train? Are they fat? Are they out of shape?
Right.
And let's be real, when you're doing 8 to 10 hours a day of personal training in a gym and you're literally handling everybody else's shit, sometimes you're going to go to the wayside. But your trainer should not look out of shape. You should ask them, what do they do? Do they change their program up? Are they powerlifters? Are they bodybuilders? Are they specific into one region where you're like, dude, I got a messed up shoulder and I need rehab. This guy's never done any rehab in his life. He's a powerlifter. Do you think that's going to be a good match for you?
Probably not.
So you know what I mean? So just kind of scoping out and being like, well, how do you train and what's your philosophy?
Yeah, tell me about your journey, right?
Exactly.
And how did you get here? And so going back to that, I was like, does your trainer fit is your trainer modeling effectively the behaviors and the lifestyle that you need to be doing in order to achieve your goals? And you might not fully understand that yet. And so there could be like, hey, we're in a day and age where things look a little bit different, right? And there was times where you can walk into gyms, you'd see nothing but bodybuilders, right? That doesn't work for me, right? Like I've seen that lifestyle, I've lived that lifestyle, and by the way, that's a very, very small percentage of people, not the major. But that's why we don't have a lot of them here at Red Dot Fitness because there's so much of a bigger market. But there are coaches. If you ask this question, like you'll find coaches out there that seemingly are out of shape or overweight. But what you don't know is the story behind there, where, hey, 2 years ago they were 400 pounds, right? And they found fitness and they found nutrition, and now they're so passionate about it now, and they don't want anybody to feel the way they feel, and so they're jumping into they're trying to now become coaches. For sure, it's changed their life. You have to decide if that's the right coach for you. Exactly. That person everybody's still on their journey all the time, but at the same time, just because
they lost weight doesn't mean
exactly.
Yep, exactly. And just because they train a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to train you that way. So I think in that conversation, when you're asking your coach or prospective coach, hey, can you tell me about how you train? Eventually it should come back around to, okay, so I'm going to share with you how I train, but this isn't about me. This is about you.
Yep.
Because
You know?
I've done powerlifting, I've done bodybuilding. I'm more in a functional, I guess you would say, bodybuilding
Right.
and corrective exercise lifestyle right now. But I can train you through any modality.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And I think that you need to have a coach that has gone through all these modalities, understands them, has put work through them. And that, yeah, right now I'm powerlifting, but you want to bodybuild? I've done that. I've done that for 5 years and I can take you through that. We can do protocols. You want to come back and we go through a strength phase. I'm a powerlifter. You know what I mean?
I think
being able to be malleable.
I think when people ask that question, what they're kind of looking for is just kind of the summary of like what's your experience, right? And asking like what you're doing with your own fitness journey, health and fitness journey is a way to connect. I think that should be a really great question, for an easy question for a coach to answer. To your point is like, hey, I'm glad you asked that. Like, I don't get, some people make a lot of assumptions, but I'll keep it brief. And here's what it is, right? This is what I've done over time, and ultimately bringing it back to you. And this is what it's helped me to do. And that's to understand that there is no one size fits all. And I don't train people the way I train.
And it articulates that when
it gives you the opportunity to say that, right? Versus, no, everybody's doing it this way. Again, if you have a very specific goal for a very specific thing, then maybe there's way more congruency and similarities in what the programming for your coach looks like as compared to you. I think that the higher your training age, right, and the more specificity there is in your goal, then that might come a little bit more congruent. It'll be a little bit more parallel. But it is a solid question.
I like that one.
Yeah,
I think it's a good one. I definitely think it's a good one. What else?
Do we have?
I mean,
so so we had a very close friend of ours who moved across country, and she was here. She was working with all three of us actually at one point.
Yep.
I was doing the fitness coaching. You were helping her with the mobility, and you were helping her with nutrition.
Right.
And when she left, she had asked that we get on a call with a prospective coach that she was interviewing because because she wanted help. She didn't know necessarily the right questions to ask. So I think that if you're a client and you're relocating, if you have somebody that you've worked with in the past, ask that prospective coach if they'd be okay talking to your previous coach. That previous coach can talk about the things that you've accomplished, some of the challenges that they may have had, and kind of get a feel for that prospective coach's philosophy and training methods. So, as somebody that's looking for a new coach, that might be something to consider as well.
That is great.
So this is it. There's another question in there. I think these kind of overlap a little bit, in the sense that, like, if I'm a client, I'll come back to this question in a second. I understand, and a coach should understand that things happen, right? Like there could be breaks in the program somewhere. Like I get called away on a business trip, or my kids are sick, or I want to go on a vacation, and
life.
Yeah, it's life, or job changes, and my work schedule's hairy for a while. Like, what can I do? Like, how do you help me through that? How do we continue this process? So I'll come back to that, because this one is a good one, CC, and I remember that vividly, actually, because as this client was out there, and by the way, this is a savvy person, right? In her own
very
right,
business savvy,
very business savvy, right?
Successful.
Very business savvy. And working with a lot of high level people.
Former collegiate athlete as well.
Collegiate. So this is like.
Was this barbecue?
No. This is no. Yeah. So this is I would say like an above average client for that matter, in terms of their knowledge.
Yeah.
So here's what happened in that, which I remember very vividly. Client goes out and interviews interviewing prospective coaches. Kind of lands on one, right? Like, and then says, hey, would you mind speaking to my coaches, right, that I've had that have been helping me or whatever,
that's a little intimidating,
to share information about what I've been doing to help you be in a better position as a coach to pick up kind of where they left off. And effectively what happened there is, of course, yeah, let's talk. Like, let's put us together. We got on a call. And
how was the other side?
Well, this was what happened. So basically at the end of the call, and I want to be I want to be clear about this. Red Dot Fitness is about getting people help, right? So we're not trying to be like, we're not going to be offensive or defensive, very neutral and just like, hey, what's the best plan for this person that we've been working with and care about, right? So the questions that were getting asked and the things that were being shared, I think was more of it was clearly way over the head of this coach on the other end. So, and that's fine. They just weren't, maybe didn't understand things that is deep below. That's totally fine. Yeah. But what the client ended up realizing is like, I had a very different conversation with that person when you guys weren't there. And now looking back at it, it sounded way more scripted because I knew the answers to the questions that you guys were asking, and this coach didn't. And these were in my mind answers to questions that he should have had. Oh, yeah. Right? He should have been able to easily articulate. And she didn't realize that. This client didn't realize that until the questions were being asked in front of her. She's like, wait a minute, I know the answer to that question. And he never asked me that. Right. And now they're having to articulate and answer it for him and trying to get him to understand. So it exposed some things. The purpose of that was not for us to do that, but had we not had that conversation, it would not have done that. Down a wrong avenue, any good coach worth their salt would be more than happy to make a connection with another coach,
and talk for a while.
Yeah, and at least be open, at least for a little bit, or be open to a conversation and then be able to be honest and have some integrity in that conversation.
You can always disagree to agree at the end.
1,000%. Yeah, 1,000%. So that's a really good point. But that brings me to the next question, which would be, hey, what happens when things come up? Like
this is a big one.
How do we stay connected?
This
is a big one. How do we stay connected? Because things do come up. Yeah. Again, travel, work, whether it's leisure or whatever else, like just because you're gone, or maybe your coach wants to go on vacation, right? Like as coaches, we like to relax. We like to go snowboarding. We like to go to the, we like
take some time.
He brought up snowboarding.
We like to chase storms. Yeah, right? We like to get out and do stuff. We like to get.
We're laughing because we had a conversation about that earlier.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, Jeff and I.
It's almost there.
But like to shoot things.
People like to go places, right? So how do we stay connected when we're gone? Just because one of us is gone doesn't mean the programming and the coaching should or needs to stop.
It shouldn't.
What resources will I have in order to continue my program, one way or another? And this is something that I believe all coaches should have thought through already, particularly after what happened in the last couple of years with gyms being shut down and whatever. And there are just too many ways to be able to do that in an easy, cost-effective way for both client and coach. Yep. And so if your coach doesn't have an answer to that, it's due to complacency. That's period, end of story. They just haven't thought about it, and that's complacent, given, again, what we know from a historical perspective and not taking into account reality.
And that would scare like my regular programming, because all you're doing is programming what I have at home with exercises. It's nothing. It's plug and play.
How do you mean? Explain.
So you come to me and I have an exercise program for you, right?
Yep.
How can I not give you an exercise program at home with the equipment you have? I just made one here for you. What, like body weight at home? You get what I'm saying?
You're not it's homework.
How are you not able to do that as a coach?
Oh, you mean as a coach?
Yeah.
Got it.
How are you not able to make okay, I'm gone. This is the equipment that you have at home, or you have open gym or whatever it is.
You have some access.
I know what access you have. Or you don't. I need to know the access. But if you don't, body weight, we'll
figure it out. What resources exist for you? They should be readily available.
You could go on YouTube and type in bed exercises for people that can't walk and find a whole. You get what I'm saying?
I think that the point in this is that there should be a plan for that. It should already be like, hey, no problem. This happens all the time. This is how we handle that. Yep.
Still based on your individuality, right?
So maybe this coach is working in a facility somewhat like ours. Maybe there's other independent contractors. Maybe it's all employees. Here, if we have a coach that wants to go on vacation, which we encourage, no problem.
We plug.
We'll make sure that you're connected with one of our other coaches during that time. They'll be, they'll
work together as a team to make sure that you get your programming.
Yeah. You keep the regularity in your program, and there's no harm, no foul. And nobody here is worried about anybody stealing anybody's clients.
Because we share clients.
We share clients all the time. Yeah. It's great. It's a great ecosystem, right? And because when you want to go on vacation as the client that was covering for somebody, then You just hand them over to the other person.
And they still get the same program, the same quality.
And by the way, they get a little bit of a different taste of things.
Absolutely.
Which is
each coach coaches
it's
differently,
nice to have
right?
a break for me.
There's some
for
nuance
sure.
as well.
For sure,
yeah,
Jeff.
different humor.
Jeez.
Maybe they work in another facility. Maybe they have somebody they'll hand off to. But to simply say, yeah, I'm going on for vacation for 2 weeks, so you're on for your own. See ya? That red flag. Or, what happens when I travel? What do you do? Well, I can text you some workouts.
So I can talk on
I think
that
it's
real
lazy.
quick.
I think that's lazy.
So they went out of town, a client. This is a very pain client. It's a chiropractic referral. And we went over, I made videos, intense videos of going over these stretches. As you guys know, they're very anal. They have to be on point. Structures have to be in alignment. Awareness has to be on point. So, making videos and adjusting in the video. I mean, it took a long time. She didn't end up doing one of the stretches the whole time you're there, right? And it does come down to the client, right? You can program for them, but if they're on vacation, they're doing their thing and they don't want to, or whatever happens, and it doesn't get done, that's not on you, right? You program, it's still on the client, but it's just sad that you go over all this time. You want them, they're in pain. You want them to get out of pain. You put this program together, but the association somewhere disassociated, right?
There's a disconnect, yeah.
I'm on, and then they didn't want to come back into the gym until they felt better. And I had to have a conversation with them yesterday and actually bring them in later and talk to them on the phone, because they were trying to be like, I want to go to the chiropractor. I want to feel better before I start working out. And I said, that is the worst recipe. I want to
the reason you feel this way is because you didn't do the things you're supposed to do.
And you got sent to me from the chiropractor because I'm not a regular personal trainer. This is my specialty. Right. You need to come in so we can work on these things. So she did. She felt better. She said, thank you for forcing me to come in. And this is how I'm going to get back on. But, sometimes you have to hit that switch for people because it's just whatever, a coping mechanism or whatever it is, they don't want to go through, they're in pain. I get it. You don't want to move, or you don't want to, you're low energy, whatever. Right. But the fact that she came in, she pushed it, she saw that she felt better. And then that gave her a result of, I'm coming back in. Right. So sometimes you have to push your clients to get back into the gym too.
So clients or prospective clients should understand that. And I think that brings up the next question, which are expectations. Let's do some expectation setting. So what would you expect of me as a client, and what should I expect of you as a coach? And we just talked a lot about that, and that's going to be specific to whatever it is that you're asking them for. But setting up expectations is super important. And a coach should not be afraid to tell you if he or she thinks your expectations are a little bit unrealistic or over ambitious, or under ambitious, right?
Don't be scared to lose a client because you're being honest.
1000%. And I think that's the point on both sides is like, if you're a client and you're asking these questions, you don't feel like you're getting the answers that you're looking for, be honest.
Yeah, push it. Yeah.
Right? Like push the question. Yeah. Okay, maybe I'm not asking the question right? Maybe let me ask it again. If you're not getting the answers that you want, it's probably not the right fit. Same on the coach's side of things, to your point. So expectation setting is important. We mentioned this earlier in terms of setting expectations, and that is anybody that's setting up setting an expectation prior to any kind of assessment or working with you about how much weight you're going to lose, how much muscle you're going to get, how many days you're going to work out, all of that in terms of basically trying to line out your program in front of you before you've even gone through any sessions with them. That's a red flag. That's a red flag. You can ask for general recommendations, right? And but that's all that is. That's not specific to you. So again, if you're joining a general type of exercise program, that might be more appropriate. This is what the program is. This is what we do here. You as a client or a member need to decide, is this sound like the right program for me? Because it is standardized, right? So everybody does this. They come 5 days a week. They do this at this time.
It's on the chalkboard. You look at it.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's on the screen, whatever it happens to be. Does this seem like it fits my needs? If you asked all those other questions, and we were talking about goals and exercise or training age and exercise and health history and all that stuff can get identified, right?
Yes.
And anyhow, so the expectation setting piece is a big one. And anybody that's setting up expectations ahead of seeing you, specific to your exercise programming, I think is a red flag. And I'd want to get out of there.
Mhm.
I want to get out of there. Any more? I have one more type of question.
I throw you off your game, kind
Exactly.
of test you, kind of a question.
I think you throw in a curveball there, something that you feel really strongly about or already have an answer to. To see how the person responds to that. What's your example?
You know what? I really want to lose my belly right here. What types of exercises can I do for that?
I was just
Should I work my abs?
Yeah.
I need to work my abs, right? Because the fat's here.
How many days a week should I work my abs? Or like, how do I tone my arms?
Dude, oh my God.
How do I tone my arms?
How do I get the cellulite off my ass?
So the reason we bring those questions up is because those are the ones that are usually those topics are usually the ones that are the attention grabbers, right?
Well,
that's the clickbait.
Because it makes people, so the fitness industry does a really good job at making you feel inferior, right?
1000%.
They feed on
You're dumb.
and they prey on the fear.
You must have my help. You must have this product.
You know what I mean?
And this is the answer.
And so people have a little bit of belly fat and they feel, embarrassed about it. And that's fine that you enter the gym for these physical appearance changes to make yourself feel better. But over time, hopefully it changes into more of a healthy direction instead of like a aesthetic driven, right?
All the time, right? Yeah.
So that there's nothing wrong with entering the gym and wanting these things. Like I'd love a six pack.
It's really good. That's really good that you preface it that way, man. So who doesn't want quote unquote toned arms, right? We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to lose that little extra belly fat, right? Who doesn't want, who doesn't want to, and I'll just leave it at that. Who doesn't want those things? I've never met anybody that doesn't want those things, man. I honestly, like, people that tell you like, oh, none of that's important to me. At some point it will be, right? So maybe it's not now, but it will be for you. If you stay in this long enough, it will become a little bit more important for you. It doesn't have to be a dominating factor.
Exactly.
But to your point, Jeff, that's fine. And those are totally normal, valuable goals. Like you need to have those goals. But the point of asking the question is what kind of answer do you get? This one always kills me when I still see people fucking addressing it on, in social media, like, this is what you got to do to lose the stubborn belly fat. I mean, what's some of the shit you hear?
Just stay off the internet.
As far as to lose the belly fat?
Yeah. Oh, that's the example.
Lemon and water.
Was it like a one crunch for every day over 30 days? So then,
oh my God,
however many, like,
someone came up with the formula.
I wish I hadn't asked the question.
F equals mass times acceleration.
Honestly, I wish I hadn't asked the question. I think.
So a lot of things is like the waist wrap and the sweet sweat and all of these things where you're applying a substance around your abdominals and you're wrapping the shit out of them in a corset, right? So what you're doing is you're effectively taking your core musculature out of the equation because it's getting braced by a corset.
Support.
You are literally weakening your core. Your core muscles are going to atrophy. The opposite of hypertrophy, okay? Like they're going to diminish. And then you've got this thermogenic sweat juice on your abs that make you feel like you're sweating because you got it wrapped in this corset and you're sweating and you think that this is what is going to show your abdominals. It's all just a surface level scam for these things where, dude, the way
how about the electrodes too? Where you put the electrodes on your belly and you turn it up, and so then it's like,
E-stim. I love those. They're awesome. Yeah.
I've seen some for some powerlifting application where I'm like, that might be something cool, but anything else outside of that?
Yeah. The question, a question like that could get asked so that you're hearing, again, this goes back to the checking in on the philosophy and the methodology, and is all this adding up? Like, or is this all scripted? Does it make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
What is my spidey sense telling me about this? And by now, if you don't understand that all the crunches in the world are not going to get you, abdominal definition, or all the arm curls and, tricep extension,
body part isolation,
body part is going to get you more toned arms. That's it. There's more that goes into that. Yeah. And what I want to hear is somebody if I'm on the other side I'm on that phone as a potential client, I want to hear somebody be really honest.
For sure.
Right. And basically say, look, there is no specific exercise that's going to do that. I don't have any products. I don't have any special proprietary programming solution for you.
Spot reduction doesn't work.
It doesn't operate that way.
Yeah.
What I can tell you based on what I know about you now is that we need to get you in here for an assessment, right? We need to work through a few things. definition or seeing that definition, building muscle so that when you burn enough body fat that you can see that definition, that should be part of the process that we go through together. We'll need to talk together and find out what's the most appropriate approach to all of that stuff. But until we take it to the next step, which if you come to Red Dot, it's complimentary. We can do the next step, doesn't cost you anything except for your time. That'll put both you and me as a coach in a more informed position to give you a little bit more of a specific answer to that. But I'm going to circle back to your point, be really honest. But if what you're looking for is a specific plan or program that's going to get that for you,
I'm not the coach for
I'm
you.
not the coach for you. We're not the right place for you.
Dude, bodybuilding.com has hundreds of them.
Yeah.
You can go grab a template. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're just not the right spot. So asking some type of a trick question, I think can be valuable in terms of uncovering basically the sniff test or the bullshit meter.
Exactly.
And again, you mentioned at the end of the day, Jeff, that this is a business. And I mentioned the word desperation early on. You as a consumer, if you're desperate, it's really easy to maybe get talked into something from somebody else that's desperate.
For sure.
Or that senses or smells that desperation on you. So I think the lesson at the end of the day maybe is to go into your screening of your potential coach or program or gym that you're going into prepared. Put a list of questions on your phone. Go through there. Think about those questions ahead of time, right? We've listed a bunch of them today. Think about those questions ahead of time and really think about the answers that you think you should be getting. Ask your friends, like, what do they get from their coaches? Like, what do they get in their programs? So that you have, if you're brand new at this and have never done this before, really honestly assess what it is you're trying to get out of this. And more importantly, am I finding like a connection with this person? Or am I feeling like somebody's trying to sell me something, right? I called them, so they shouldn't have to work so hard at selling me anything, right? That's an approach I like to take is like, hey, you called me. I'm just doing the due diligence. I am here to give you all the information you may need and want in order to make the right decision for you.
He's a horse leader.
Of course, I want you to hire me, I think, but we're going to assess. I'm not going to tell you that. I want you to hire me, I think, but I don't want to say I want you to be my client right now because I don't know if I want you as a client right now. There's the wants and the needs piece on my end too. And so as a consumer, you need to understand your coach should be weighing that. And so there is an equal value exchange when you walk into this relationship.
Yeah.
And those that are equally balanced tend to be long-term, long-lasting, very successful and rewarding relationships. And ultimately, that's what you're doing. You're not, look, if you just want a drill sergeant, there's a million of them out there. You want somebody to be yelling and spitting at you, while you're out there on the fitness floor. Hey, go join a group class. You don't want a coach. Yeah. You want a drill instructor. You want a cheerleader. If you want somebody that's just going to, cheer you on through your workout and play with be the DJ and play with the music and the lighting or whatever you're working on, you're not looking for a coach.
Yeah.
Right? You're looking for a cheerleader.
I don't count. You count.
Right. Yeah. That kind of thing. You go do that. But if you really want a coach, you should want or desire some type of a connection with that coach, Absolutely. Not an appropriate one, right? It's a professional relationship. But the point of that is don't go looking through the bios or see a picture, when somebody looks like they're in shape and like the old days and go, I want that one. Yeah. Or see the Instagram post and go, that makes, that's got the right energy for me. I'm joining that group. Like vet these people. Yeah. Vet these people. It'll help us as coaches be better. It'll help that coach be better in the long run, or maybe not for that matter. But I'll certainly
also give a better name to the industry.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
That's why we're sharing this.
That's the big thing for me, man.
That's
like
why
I put a lot of love and focus and intent in what I do. And I see a lot of people not doing that, but they're making a lot of money doing it.
Yeah, it's hard to watch.
I mean, they're doing what they're doing. It upsets me though that those people could be getting so much better care and getting taken care of and really individualized where,
they're currently not.
Yeah, exactly. And and over time, these people get injuries or whatever, and it just gives the industry a bad name. Like, oh, that's why
it gives the real professionals in the industry a bad name.
Yeah. No, that's why personal trainer, you don't use that anymore. It's coach.
Yeah, so when you're interviewing your coaches, just buyer beware.